Welcome back in, everybody. Appreciate you hanging with us. He's Derek. I'm Rob. We're Sports Take on this Thursday. Yeah. All right. Let's go positives, Derek, because they are 2-0. Let's start there. Hard thing to win in this league. They beat a Patriots team that I don't think is ultimately a playoff team, but is a team that is going to give other teams fits because of their defense and because of their game planning and whatnot.
Yes.
They beat a Vikings team that probably isn't a playoff team either, frankly. But you have to understand the circumstances and sort of the time and place with some of the injuries that they had and the things that they were dealing with. So nonetheless, you've won two this year. And believe me, if you went and talked to the LA Chargers or the Denver Broncos or some of these other teams that are off to these 0-2 starts, they trade places with you in a heartbeat. So let's start with the positives. Jalen Carter looks to have all the earmarks of a guy who probably should have been a top 3 pick, who they ended up getting at 9, who looks pro ready, who appears to not only understand the game, comprehend the game, but have an array of moves where he's ready to contribute right now. And so far, man, he looks like the real deal. He's in the top 4 in pressures in the NFL through 2 weeks, and he just looks awesome. So that's a huge sign.
Everything about him has so far been true. Such an explosive guy off the snap, shoots the gaps before offensive linemen can set their feet to slow him down. And with his quickness, his straight ahead speed, and his strength, it has been a problem in 2 games for the opposition. No question about it. Him pushing back the pocket in the middle of that field forces a quarterback off his landing spot where he wants to set his feet in a rhythm passing offense. And that's what you need. You need a guy who can consistently be a disruptive factor in the middle of a defense, and that's exactly what he's doing. And you look at the volume of snaps he's playing right now for a young guy. Hey, if you're a top 10 pick and you're a young guy and you're being counted on to play, you can play a little bit extra. Now, when you get up there 28, 29 years old, you might play a little bit less based on the wear and tear of your body. But right now, with his youth and athleticism, he's getting after people, man. And I guarantee you, OCs are already looking at this dude trying to find ways to slow him down.
Yep. And then how about his partner? You know, and I know he's in his second year, not in his first year, but Jordan Davis being a guy who's disruptive, you know, in the backfield and already having a sack and a half is nothing short of awesome. I mean, because we came in with a lot of question marks for him, and for him to be playing the way that he's playing so far, and it looks like he was right. He said, "I'm going to maintain at 340, but I'm in way better condition. I can be playing at the end of games." You know, this is why they were so attracted to him too, Derek, with that insane combine that he had for that giant frame.
You know, it's funny how the game has changed, Rob. You know, we grew up watching these big edge rushers, big, stout, you know, mobile object edge rushers, and you know, and the D tackles. In many cases, the edge rushers were bigger. Now we see that the edge rushers have gotten leaner, taller, swifter, and the guys in the middle are now the warthogs in the middle. Their job is a thankless job in terms of clogging the middle. So, you know, you can play games in other areas. But, you know, for a guy as big as him, his agility is off the charts, you know.
Yeah.
And we wonder, you know, when he came out and told the media that, well, you know, I'm still around 340, you're thinking, wait a minute. How are you going to function better than you did last year at 340? So far in 2 games, he's answered that. His quickness is there. His power is there. You know, I've seen in the 2 games offensive linemen try to double him and can't move him. You know, he stands them straight up, you know, and that's what you want to do. You don't see a lot of this in the stats, but he's standing people up, and he's also, you know, pushing the pocket back. And he's a bigger body. Once he gets his arms up, it takes away throwing lanes for quarterbacks, especially shorter quarterbacks like a Baker Mayfield, a Mac Jones, so on and so forth. So the youth movement in a D tackle position right now is in good hands with this Eagles team. They've got to continue that as the second level, the linebackers and the secondary continue to evolve.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest – most quarterbacks will tell you the toughest pass rush is the one that comes right up the middle in their face. That's the most difficult for them. And if you have Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter and Fletcher Cox and Milton Williams playing at the level they're playing, really all four in that group are playing great. Trust me, Reddick's going to start getting his sacks. Sweat's going to continue to get his sacks. Brandon Graham's going to get his sacks. Derek Barnett will get sacks if that's the case, if they are that effective there. Young Truth jumps in. We appreciate you, Young Truth. Need to bring back Cravon LeBlanc, a.k.a. Strap, or Bryce Callahan to take the slot. Both of them familiar with the side defense, which y'all big dogs take. All right. Well, I think there's going to be some moves made. I do. Look, barring somebody going out there and looking great on Monday night and or the next week, I think something's coming. I think a move's coming. Whether it's, excuse me, just grabbing a guy who's available that isn't going to cost you any kind of compensation, or tapping into a team that's got somebody who's established. Either one.
I agree with you 100%, but my goodness, Rob, the pickings are slim, in terms of what you bring in. And sometimes you have to caution yourself. You don't just bring in somebody that can take up valuable practice time, playing time for somebody else, especially in the growth process. But then again, if the Eagles identify the youth movement, especially at certain spots, are not accelerating as quickly as they would hope, you have to do something to kind of plug the gap in whatever the deficiency is, whether it's at the linebacking spot, safety, backup cornerback spot, whatever the case may be. They're going to have to do something, But again, those guys, whoever they bring in, are going to take snaps away from the guys who are trying to learn at an accelerated rate to get more snaps. Yep. It's a very difficult balance in terms of deciding what you bring in. See, now when they brought in Ndamukong Suh and Linville Joseph, those guys hit the ground running. They were proven vets. They're playing a D-tackle position. Their responsibilities doesn't change much. I need you to eat up space and push the pocket back, plain and simple. When you start talking about linebackers, safeties, and cornerbacks, their responsibilities are vastly different. There's more involved for those guys. So that's why, you're trying to get younger and better at the same time, but also you're trying to get back to the Super Bowl. And if teams keep attacking the same area in your defense with a good measure of success, you've got to do something to try to slow that down.
Well said. Well said. All right, let's continue on the positive theme here. I think Josh Sweat's looked really good. He had the strip sack last week. He appears to be, where he was last year. I feel great about where he's at right now. He looks good.
I'm a little bit surprised, though, that he's playing almost 72% of the snaps. And you look at the drop-off. Brandon Graham's only playing 27. He's playing 72. I thought there would be more of a balance. Derek Barnett is playing 22% of the snaps. I thought there would be a little bit more balance in that regard. Now, when I look at Hassan Reddick, with that thumb, Hassan Reddick is out there 70% of the snaps.
Right.
I thought they would be a little high for him. I thought even though they were playing Minnesota and New England, that they would give him a little bit more of a rest so he's not doing unnecessary damage to that thumb as it continues to heal. But it's quite obvious that in Sean Desai's defense, he wants Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick out there as much as possible. And Brandon Graham and Derek Barnett are your breathing relievers, so to speak.
Yep.
Because I thought it would be more like a 60-40 split, maybe 55-45. Those numbers are glaring in terms of how much Desai is putting on both of his primary edge rushers.
Yeah, it is. It does seem like a lot. You're right in those terms. Let's jump over to a couple other positives. Devontae Smith's off to a really good start. I don't think any of us are surprised, but he continues his ability to make plays in traffic, Derek, whether that's going up there, two guys like that. The first catch that he made on Thursday night, Jalen underthrew him. He has to kind of come back, jump up, and outmaneuver those guys and still make the play, which you don't see a lot of skinny, sort of smaller guys make. That's usually a DK Metcalf, AJ Brown kind of play, but he's gotten very good at that with the body control and the ability to kind of box guys out. He's looked awesome so far.
I call him the rubber band man. I know people refer to him as skinny Batman. To me, he's the rubber band man. He can contort his body and make these acrobatic catches. When you look at him running at full speed, he doesn't break stride. It's like one fluid motion when he runs. You look at the deep ball he caught for the touchdown. DB didn't come close to catching up to him. And it's not like he had to, fully exert himself. He just kept striding. He makes the acrobatic catches along the sideline. He makes the tough catches. But more importantly, for a guy of his sleight of build, he takes some hellacious shots and he looks you in the eye and says, that's your best shot. Psychologically, he's won that battle against whoever puts the shot on him, a DB or a safety. And as a DB or safety, if I hit the likes of DK Metcalf, AJ Brown with my best shot and they get up, okay, they're bigger than I am. I get it. These dudes are built. But when a little skinny guy like that, you hit him and knock him flat, number one, he's holding on to the ball. And number two, he just gets up at you and look at you like, that's it. That's a psychological win for the receiver in this case.
Yeah.
But, he's earned the right to be emerging in his offense. He's steadily improved his first 2 years. Look at the numbers he put up in his rookie year when he was still feeling his way around the league and learning how to play at a pro level. Yep. Just under 1,000 yards to finally surpassing that 1,000-yard mark last year. He had, 7 more catches than A.J. Brown did last year, 95 to 88, and had over 1,100 yards receiving. So he's already shown that, throw me the ball 9 times out of 10, I'll get it.
Absolutely. So he's looked good. And, what else can you say about DeAndre Swift? I mean, the guy ends up being the NFC Offensive Player of the Week. Yeah. He goes crazy. They lean on him. And Nick Sirianni said, hey, look, there's no reason we won't continue to lean on him. I think you got to be a little bit more judicious in the amount of touches that he gets. But I understand the circumstance. I mean, you're talking about Kenny Gainwell was already out of the game. Boston Scott got hurt. And it was working. For all those reasons, he got as many handoffs as he's got. So no complaint as far as it goes. But if everybody's healthy, I think a little less in terms of like the between the tackle kind of stuff where you really get hit a lot. But man, he showed you, we already know he can do things in space. Now we know also he can be effective off tackle also.
You talking about Swift?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I agree with Nick. After that performance against Minnesota, okay, we can lean on you. You cannot lean on this man 28 carries a game. He's not Nick Chubb. He's not Derrick Henry. He's a home run hitter. Now, I see you leaning on him to protect the lead going into halftime, lean on him in the fourth quarter to protect the lead and close out a game.
Yep.
But trying to lean on him from start to finish is not a good game plan for him. His body build is just that you got to be concerned about that. You can't see from the running back position. While I think they're in good hands with Boston Scott and Gainwell, he gives them another element, another accelerating element that those two don't have. And especially because of his accomplishments as a pass catcher out of the backfield, you need that also. If you overuse this dude, you're going to wear him down sooner rather than later. I think you need to get Boston Scott a few more touches. And whether it's Gainwell or Penny, you need to get him a few more touches between the tackles to soften up a defense a little bit more so that when you go to a DeAndre Swift and he breaks outside of containment, you're basically leaving defensive personnel gasping with their hands on their knees trying to bring this dude down, because he's also shown you that you're not just going to arm tackle him either.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is demoralizing for a defense.
No question. And look, this one's related to that. The O-line in terms of run blocking has been awesome. They've been absolute. I mean, it was incredible. The holes that were opened up with the center, with the guards, that Swift hit. They got to get their act together from a pass blocking, which we'll talk about in a second. But also on that same theme, the run defense has been the best in football through 2 games.
Yes.
I don't know that like New England should run it better than they run. They've run it so far, but they're not running it well. And the Vikings just made a trade to get Cam Akers because their running game is so porous. But nonetheless, Eagles didn't give them any kind of sniff. They turned them both into one-dimensional teams.
I think part of it too is teams had to abandon the run game, even as stout as the Eagles were against the run, because they were playing catch up.
Yeah.
Especially by the time you get to the second half. When this team's got a double-digit lead, when your opponent has a double-digit lead on you, what do? The quickest way to gain real estate and try to get the ball to the end zone is put it up in the air. Because if you're going to continue with that ground and pound game and it's going nowhere, you're eating up the clock, you're 3 and outs, the clock is still running, and it reduces your chances of trying to get back into the game. So you have to take to the air. What did we see? Mac Jones, Kirk Cousins, they started going through the air, finding a measure of success. All of a sudden, the gap is closed in a game that should have been put away. You have to be able to take away a team's heart.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to instill in a team that no matter what you're trying to do, that you're not going to have success today or tonight.
Yep, absolutely.
The Eagles have done that with the run game. Still a huge question mark with the pass game.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. All right, so they're and throw Jake Elliott in there. What the heck? There's for the positives for sure, because there's a good amount of them. The negatives, we've talked about Hurts. What do you make of the offensive line in the pass blocking game? What do you make of what's going on there?
I think in a lot of cases, his defense is overloading, guys shooting the gaps. I know I've seen sporadic comments saying that the offensive line is getting old. Well, 3/5 of that offensive line is still relatively young. Your left tackle, left guard, and your right guard are young. Your center and your right tackle, yes, they're in their 30s, they're Pro Bowlers, but they're smart. You get to this stage of your careers, what you may lose in quickness and speed, you can make up for in terms of technique, in terms of knowing little things to help you cheat to win without getting caught. And maybe that's where, Lane Johnson and Jason Kelsey are at their positions, but they are still two of the best at what they do.
Right.
So I just think it's a matter of them getting on the same page in terms of line calls, feet setting your feet a certain way. It has been interesting that the pass blocking has been as inconsistent as it has, but how much of that also has been on the quarterback holding the ball? When you're in a rhythm offense and the quarterback's not getting the ball out, the offensive line, I don't care who you are, I don't care how dominant you are, offensive line can only hold up for so long, especially when you have a quarterback. When you're blocking and you can't see behind you, you don't know where he is a lot of times, especially the way Jalen Hurts scrambled, stepped up, and ran last year. You can put a certain percentage on that with the offensive line, but in their heads, if they're saying 1,001, 1,002, 1,003, ball should be gone, all of a sudden you're finding out that your quarterback's still doing this with the ball.
Right.
That's as much on the quarterback as it is the offensive line.
Yeah, it's a good point. All right, I'm not going to say they're playing bad. I'm just going to say it's been quiet. So because A.J. Brown has as many catches as Devontae Smith does. But A.J. Brown, 2 games, 11 catches, 108 yards. It's 9.8 yards per catch, no touchdowns. Then you look at Goddard, 2 games, 6 catches, 22 yards. That's 3.7 yards per catch and no touchdowns. It's just been slow. It's been slow for both of these two guys to kind of get going here. And look, everything ties into the other, right? The passing game hasn't been great. The offensive line's blocking maybe hasn't necessarily been great.
Right.
And AJ Brown and Dallas Goedert are at the mercy of those other things, those other entities doing their part.
Well, I'm a little surprised that Goddard has not been more of a viable factor in the offense and hasn't had more yards. And we were talking about this in the show meeting. What is he averaging? Like 2 yards a catch?
3.7. Yeah.
Okay. That's going to change. I'm a little bit surprised. It hasn't been more successful coming out of the gate. But again, this is part of, okay, we're not spreading a defense as much as we should. So we know Goddard's input is going to it's going to increase. Now, he's going to have those games. He might have 6 catches for 75 yards, and he may also have 6 catches for 35 yards.
Yep.
It depends on down and distance and how defenses are defending them, who they have on him. His season is going to be up and down like that all year long. But I do think because of his athleticism, he's as sure-handed as any tight end in the league. You have to get him more involved to keep a defense on his heels.
Yeah, I agree. And he's too good for this to continue. That much is for sure. So other than that, I would say, again, I put this in the category of quiet, not bad. No sacks yet for Hassan Reddick. Now, again, you've had other guys get home. Sweat has gotten home. Davis, a sack and a half worth. He's gotten home. But it's been pretty quiet, all things considered, for Hassan Reddick. Keep in mind, he started slowly last year, and then he really, really came on. But right now, Derek, he's got 1 tackle. He has, he has no sacks. no tackles for losses. I'd have to pull up his numbers on hurries and whatnot, but that's kind of where he's at.
I think it's because he's protecting that thumb.
Yeah.
I really do. Just the fact that his presence out there gives a quarterback something else to think about when you look at what he accomplished last year. But I do believe, and Mike Quick, agreed with me the other day. I believe the thumb, it still has an effect on how he attacks, how he extends his arms to punch the shoulder pads of offensive tackles or a tight end if a tight end is trying to block him. I don't think he's quite there yet. And especially when you start having, extending your hand out there and trying to bring people down, you could mess around and do some more damage, which can keep him out even more so. I think we'll see him pick it up. I found it interesting how both Mac Jones and Kirk Cousins, who's not a big scrambler, were able to step up. If you look at the tape, Hassan Reddick is getting pressure from the outside, but the opposing quarterbacks have done a better job of stepping up and sliding away from where he is to buy extended time to throw the football. Mm-hmm. So I think once Hassan has the ability to grab the pads and move tackles where he wants to shoot a gap or to dip around the edge a little bit more, I think we'll get back to the Hassan of, I don't know if we'll see him get 16 sacks, right? Because what do we project, 12, 13 for the season?
Yeah, we both had him a little bit down, and some of that was just sharing the wealth with others and whatnot. But yeah, we had him down a little bit from last year.
Yeah. So 12 or 13 sacks is still a great year for any pass rusher. But I think it's going to take a little bit more time. And we know he had surgery on the thumb, but we never really know because the Eagles don't tell you exactly where he fractured or broke it. It depends on where that placement is. In a pin in his thumb. Helps determine in terms of how quickly it will heal and how much it negates him from being who we expect him to be.
Yeah, I think too. Is he protecting it a little bit? Yeah, maybe. But is he also just hampered by it? I mean, is it as simple as he's not able to do some of the things in terms of grabbing or just jockeying, for position? I think there's a lot of things that come into play with that, Derek. I mean, I think we just assume because a guy's out there, he's out on the field, he's fine. No, not necessarily. I mean, right. That's for any position really, but especially that position when you are trying to throw guys off of you and you got your one hand casted and you just can't do what you're accustomed to doing. It can affect your play.
That's huge. Leverage, rush leverage is huge in terms of being successful. And right now he's basically playing one-handed, in a lot of ways. And a smart offensive tackle identifies that and takes advantage of it, pushing him, having the ability to push him where they want him to go. And I think that's the case right now. Hassan Reddick cannot combat on equal playing ground right now with bigger offensive tackles. And I don't care how much you deaden that thing for a game, it still doesn't feel right. And for a guy who needs his hands to control where he wants to go and to get leverage when he's rushing full speed, that's uncomfortable, number one, and something you're thinking about. Yeah. Because even if he did damage to it, you wouldn't be able to feel it until that medication wore off.
Yeah, good point.
In a lot of things. So
yeah, sure, it's not feeling great after that wears off either. Woof. All right, and the other thing is injuries, and you just can't control that. I mean, it is what it is, and you hope that they're not as severe as some other teams have are dealing with presently. That's for sure. All right, let's get a timeout. Let's come back. We will talk to Eastern University head football coach Billy Crocker about his team's latest game this past week. Look ahead to this Saturday as well. We'll dig into a lot of stuff with the coach when we come back. He's Derek Gunn. I'm Rob Ellis. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. I want to tell you about Pro Action Restoration. If you have a home, you have a business, you have a property, and you go through the pain, the inconvenience of water, fire, smoke, or mold damage, you know how trying that can be. Pro Action Restoration is on call 24 hours, 7 days a week to assist. I went through it. I reached out to them on a Saturday. They got right out. They fixed the problem. They diagnosed what the issue was. They fixed it. They cleaned everything up. The price was right. The crew was professional, clean, you name it, across the board. Pro Action Restoration is licensed, bonded, fully insured. They've been serving the tri-state area for more than 2 decades. Pro Action will work in conjunction with your insurance company. So again, water, fire, smoke damage, mold remediation, you name it, they can handle it. Give them a call, 610-623-3760, 623-3760 or online at proactionrestoration.com.